The most anticipated earnings releases for the week of July 28, 2025. Presented by earningswhispers. If there isn't a company reporting earnings this week that you care about, what are you doing even listening to me? There are about 800 companies with analyst coverage reporting earnings this week, including most of the largest companies. It is the busiest week for the S&P 500, and it is the busiest week for most sectors too. But with the industrials leading the way this week, having 28 in the group reporting earnings. The two companies investors are most interested in on Monday both report after the close, and investors are really bullish on both. Celestica is trading at new highs ahead of earnings, so price is at least one reason investors are bullish. But really, the price has just been following along the path of both earnings and revenue since bottoming in the first quarter of 2021. So the key now is whether the fundamental trends continue. It isn't quite the same story for waste management, which has missed expectations 2 quarters in a row, and earnings estimates have been getting revised lower the whole time. Yet, the stock hit $230 in December, and here it is still at $230. Positive results could turn that 230 level into support. There are 4 of the Magnificent 7 companies scheduled to report earnings this week. So which company is the most anticipated among investors? You guessed it, UnitedHealthgroup. The company has extended the time of the conference call Tuesday morning to allow more time to answer analysts' questions. That's probably not about the good news they are going to tell us. But just like Centene on Friday, you can't buy the stock until you know the story. Then there is SoFi, which has had a strong move of late, all while investors have remained bearish the stock. But that isn't new because investors have been bearish since the stock was trading near $5. Meanwhile, earnings just continue trending higher. Back in January, sentiment in Meta reached a multi-year high, which turned out to be excessive and the stock soon faded. Of course, there were market forces at work too. But now the stock is back retesting the February highs and sentiment is even higher. Around the same time Meta reports on Wednesday, Microsoft also reports. Last quarter, sentiment had fallen to a point that created fuel for the stock to rally on positive results. And now that we've seen that move, sentiment has improved. But not excessively so even as the stock hits new highs. Of course, the focus on Thursday will be the other 2 Magnificent 7 stocks reporting this week, with both reporting after the close. Amazon will report first, but investors are more focused on Apple. Expectations are really the same as each of the past few quarters. The company tracked modestly positive, but there are concerns about next quarter. Meanwhile, investors are holding out hope for something with AI. Amazon has plenty of AI, and we have a pretty good idea that AWS is doing really well as long as it had enough capacity. Now you want to know about retail activity, especially after Prime Day, and what that means for guidance. There are 65 companies set to report earnings Friday morning, with ExxonMobil at the top of the list. The stock started trading between $100 and $120 near the end of 2022. That is when earnings for the company peaked, and earnings have been trending lower ever since. Yet, a couple of years later, the stock is right in the middle of that range. If there is a difference now, though, it is that sentiment bottomed around Liberation Day, and now investors are as bullish they've been since 2022. Earnings for Moderna peaked before ExxonMobil's in 2022, but the stock peaked a year earlier, and unlike ExxonMobil, shares of Moderna have been trending lower ever since. Of course, few people were shorting Moderna when it had a 400 handle on it. They waited until the stock got below $100. Since then, short interest has been steadily climbing higher. Fundamentals matter, but the downside trade is quite crowded. With the increased number of companies reporting earnings, there are more stocks with elevated volatility. The number will increase in the next couple of weeks as earnings season shifts to the smaller cap names. One standout this week is Sleep Number, which has traders pricing in a 35% move, which is nearly double the average move over the past several quarters. Another thing that stands out is the amount of short interest that has come into the name since Liberation Day. It is interesting because short interest in Sleep Number was at a multi-year low on Liberation Day, and it is now at its highest level in years. Finally, looking out over the next month, we can now see NVIDIA's earnings at the end of August.